Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.
You're locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke loves wrestling.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Folks, you know that coming up in the next 6 weeks, we're going to be celebrating officially 4 years of the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast, which is just awesome. Awesome stuff there. And through the years, you know, I've really interviewed some great folks from all over the world. In fact, I started off the show, you know, my very first guest that I interviewed was actually a guy who runs Middle Kingdom Wrestling over in China, of all places, okay? And at that time, you know, they were still just getting off the ground, still working out the kinks or what have you. Fast forward to today, and Middle Kingdom Wrestling is legitimately one of the top wrestling promotions in all of Asia. So, I mean, just really tremendous growth, and they've done a great job over there. So I said, you know something? Let me reach out to the guy that runs Middle Kingdom Wrestling China and catch up and also find out what's going on, especially with this whole coronavirus, COVID-19, this whole mess that's going on around the world, because he has a pretty interesting perspective and some challenges that he's had to face as it relates to COVID-19 and the hysteria that surrounds it. So without further ado, welcome back to the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast, Adrian Gomez. How are you, Adrian?
Good. How are you, Duke? Thanks for having me on here. Happy to be back.
Yeah, man. I mean, Jesus, it took you 4 years to find your way back to me here, but I really appreciate it there. And in fairness, I mean, we
run into each other on social media, right?
Exactly. We've been keeping up with each other the entire time, and I've appreciated your support, you and the entire staff over at Middle Kingdom Wrestling. And, you know, I'm always shouting you guys out and covering you guys through the years as well. It's just been a great friendship that, you know, I cherish. So let me just jump right into it here, though, Adrian, because you've been dealing with a very serious issue. The COVID-19 stuff, the coronavirus stuff has just really hit China hard.
This is where it all began. So
exactly.
Some of the things that you guys are doing in the United States and others in Europe, and I guess you could say the Western world, and we have been going through it since January.
So what's the status of the entire country right now? Are you seeing any kind of improvements? Because that's what we're getting on the news here, but you're actually living there. You're on the ground there. What are you seeing personally?
If you look at the numbers, obviously it's a sharp decline in new cases and in deaths, thankfully. For now, I can say that China seems to be slowly opening up again. People are starting to come out. Businesses are starting to open. But make no mistake, this is definitely far from how it was before the coronavirus first hit. It's still, people are still timid to go out, and everybody wears face masks, and the travel situation is very, very difficult, especially if you're coming from abroad or even from different province within China. You will have to be screened and checked out and made sure that you're not a carrier of the COVID-19.
For sure. And tell me, Adrian, I mean, how has this affected your business? Because, you know, you run Middle Kingdom Wrestling. It's a Chinese pro wrestling promotion. You have folks from all over the world who compete in the promotion. How has this affected your events and the promotion in general?
We start running from every year, starting in March. From January to through Chinese New Year period, those 2 months, we don't have any events. And we announced that for the first event of the year, it was going to be first ever women's wrestling tournament. We're calling it the Jinghua Warriors Cup. So we announced that in January, early January in China. And immediately the first thing that had to change was the fact that we did have to cancel that event, a two-night event. We had Leva Bates booked for that, as well as Zayda Zhang and some other women's wrestlers from around the world. But as soon as we canceled that, shortly we had to stop training. We had to stop several other things as China increasingly had to. You could say kind of like martial law. You weren't allowed to leave your home, and it was very strict. There were police officers and medical personnel literally in every outside of every neighborhood to make sure that you wouldn't leave your home for a certain period of time. Thankfully, that period has finally stopped, so we can go outside more freely. But the first 3 months, it was very strict. We couldn't get out.
That's interesting that you say that, because you said the first 3 months. So you're going on over 90 days of dealing with these strong restrictions, people getting sick, unfortunately, some people passing away and what have you here. On a personal level, Adrian, I mean, how concerned have you been over this coronavirus stuff? And in fact, let me ask you this in a twofold manner. In the beginning, how concerned were you, and how does that compare to how you're feeling today?
Personally, I am concerned about the coronavirus, but not necessarily in a way where I'm afraid. I'm afraid of catching it myself. I mean, if I catch it, I catch it. I think, hopefully, at my age, and I'd like to say I'm not too old. I'm 32 years old, but I think I would be able to survive it. The point is, though, is that it's not necessarily about, if one person gets it. That's not the point. The point of the coronavirus, the reason of, I guess you could say, the media scare or media hysteria or whatever around it is there is a very legitimate fear that one person can literally spread it to hundreds and hundreds of people very easily, because it's a very, very contagious virus. So if one person goes to hospital for coronavirus, that's okay. But if we're talking about a sudden spike of several hundred every day, then what happens? Hospitals become overloaded, beds become sparse, medicine's not available, doctors are not able to take care of everybody, and that's when people start dying. And that's what happened in Wuhan, especially in Wuhan, China, where it originated. Very suddenly, there was about 80,000 people who had the disease, who had the virus. So and that's when people die, because there's just simply not enough equipment and not enough doctors and not enough beds. And that's where the problem is. And that's where you can see in Italy, Iran, other countries where, a few cases of coronavirus is easy to deal with. But when you're talking about, hundreds to thousands to 10,000, there just isn't enough space to deal with it. How am I feeling now? Well, I feel that China has been able to get a pretty strong grip on it. So in China, I am feeling, surprisingly, or maybe ironically, I am feeling quite a bit safer in China about it. But it is really disheartening to see how the world is now dealing with it, and that's sad to see.
Saw an article that was really interesting. Pro Sports Extra, Brad Shepard, he interviewed you about a traveling experience that initially was just supposed to be something where you were visiting some friends and you were doing some things, and it turned into almost I don't want to say a hostage situation, but you, for a while, you weren't able to move in the manner that you're used to moving. Briefly describe to everybody what happened and, where you are today in relation to the beginning of the experience you had there.
Besides wrestling, I'm also exploring Burmese bare knuckle kickboxing and trying to get possibly into promoting that, which is called Luftway. So I was down in Myanmar to do to meet some friends in the Luftway business and, discuss being able to possibly promote something down the line regarding that. Now, while down there in Myanmar, I I did get sick, and at the moment I got sick. I got sick from basic food poisoning, and I went to the hospital because the food poisoning was quite serious. But when I went to the hospital, they asked me if I had if I had been to any of the at-risk countries recently, and they saw my passport and they saw that I was in China before, and they did have to quarantine me for that reason. The fact that I was in China, and I was in China recently, less than 2 weeks ago, prior to going to the hospital, and also that I did have some symptoms as far as a fever, although it was related to the food poisoning. So yes, I was held in a hospital isolation in the city of Yangon, which is the biggest city in Myanmar. And I was in that situation for about 9 days, in fact. So I was isolated in hospital, and I told people what happened on my social media, and a lot of people reached out. A lot of media reached out, including from Pro Sports Extra. I had Reuters. I did an interview with Reuters. And among other outlets, and it was a lot of people were very curious about what it's like to be held in a hospital under forced isolation, quarantine. So I did have to go through that experience.
So in the end, they allowed you to leave because I'm assuming you're back in China now. Is that correct?
They did test me for COVID-19 in the hospital, and they tested me twice. So one in the beginning, right when I got there, and then when they let me, and then one after about 9 days or 10 days, they gave it to me again, and I didn't have it. So they did allow me to eventually to leave Myanmar. And funny enough, right after the situation with the quarantine and everything, I was actually planning to go to the United States. That was my plan, actually. So my plan was actually to go from China to Malaysia to Myanmar, from Myanmar to the United States. But after the situation in Myanmar, to be honest, it was a bit mentally exhausting. And then I did see that COVID-19 was spiking quite a bit in the United States. And I decided, you know what, the situation's getting better in China. Now, I do have a life in China. I have a family in China. I have a business in China. You know what, I'm going to hold off on my trip to the United States because I was planning on going there to see David Marquez from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and meet with producer Peter Avalon and Championship Wrestling from Arizona. But all those events were canceled. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to go back to China. So that was about 3 days ago where I decided to cancel my trip and go back to China. However, upon arriving to China, because of the fact that I guess I answered a question that made them suspect that maybe I have COVID-19. They asked me if I've taken any medicine recently, and I said, well, I did take aspirin before I got on the airplane, and perhaps I was a bit too honest, but I guess in this situation you can't be, you should reveal. You should be honest with your doctors. And I said, I took an aspirin. And because of the fact that aspirin is a fever reliever, it reduces your fever, the doctors in the Shanghai airport took me to the hospital, and I've been here for 3 days as they monitor me to make sure that I don't have COVID-19. So I am in an isolated hospital quarantine once again as we're speaking in Shanghai.
So that's twice. I mean, you left China.
Yes, it's twice. It is twice.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote recently on my social media, I said I'm a quarantine expert. So
Well, that's a great point. You sure are. And first and foremost, I'm very happy that you personally have consistently tested negative for coronavirus. And
Oh
as
yeah, I've taken
COVID-19.
5 tests.
Great,
Five
five
tests.
tests. They've all come back negative, so that's great to hear. Because you've had an experience that the majority of people listening have not had personally. You're a wealth of knowledge. So let me ask you directly, Adrian. You know, the head of Middle Kingdom Wrestling, one of the strongest, most popular promotions in all of Asia. Adrian Gomez, if you could give any advice to our listeners from around the world, especially from these countries that this thing is just starting to ramp up, where we're far behind China in terms of the wave of dealing with all the challenges of COVID-19, coronavirus, what have you, what would be some best practices and advice that you can offer to the rest of us?
Take it seriously. Do take it seriously. And I understand that people are skeptical of the media, and people are skeptical of, and that's the media's fault, to be honest, obviously, because, you know, media always has a history of selling stories. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be irresponsible or feel that you are any bigger than any one story or any one, in this case, pandemic. This is a pandemic. And this is a serious pandemic because while a lot of people kind of use the excuse like, you know, the flu kills so and so amount of people a year, this doesn't replace the flu. The coronavirus is not a flu replacement. It's working alongside the flu. So it's so while you can compare statistics of how many people get the flu, it's not flu versus coronavirus. It's flu and coronavirus, and that is that's a scary reality to think about. And the main thing here is that a lot of people, from what I can see in the culture of Americans, and I'll speak mostly to Americans, is that I don't know why, but there's kind of a stigma in America about wearing masks, about wearing gloves, and that kind of stuff. And this is something that actually a lot of Asian countries have practiced. If you go to Japan, even or China, or several other Asian countries, even without a viral pandemic, people wear masks. People are very conscious of these kind of things. So my advice would be to be, especially during this time, I'm not asking that people wear masks forever from now on, but at least during this time, don't feel ashamed to be concerned. And don't feel like just because you're worried about this thing that you're falling for some media hysteria. No, viruses don't care about media. They are, floating balls of protein that are searching for hosts. So, it's you versus the virus. It's not you versus the media, or you, it's so. I just wish people would take it more serious. That's really the one thing I can say. That doesn't mean to go crazy. There is a balance to everything, and start hoarding that kind of, that's silly. But take it seriously. That's my advice.
Good stuff. Listen, Adrian, let everybody know because, Middle Kingdom Wrestling in China, legitimately, you guys are putting on some great wrestling product. You're attracting people from all over the world, not only as the wrestlers that you have brought in, but also the fans. When folks are visiting in China, a lot of folks show up to your events and things like that. They follow you online, love your YouTube channel and all that good stuff. So let everybody know, how can they keep up with Middle Kingdom Wrestling China, see some of the events you've had in the past, and be kept aware of anything that is going to be coming down the pike once this COVID-19 stuff has run its course?
Obviously, like you mentioned, our YouTube channel, we upload all of our content from China onto the Western social media. So we do have a YouTube account, Middle Kingdom Wrestling, and there we've We upload all of our matches, and we do have a Twitter account, MKW Wrestling, Instagram, MKW China. We do have a Facebook page, Middle Kingdom Wrestling. MKW for sure is the top pro wrestling company in China. I will say to your listeners that maybe some of you guys learned about Chinese wrestling recently through like AEW because of the relationship with OWE, but OWE doesn't exist in China anymore. So really, if you are interested in Chinese wrestling, MKW, Middle Kingdom Wrestling, is the place to go. There's no other promotion that runs as regular as we do, that has a training program, that brings in names and combines our Chinese wrestlers with foreign wrestlers. The pro wrestling that you're familiar with, but with Chinese characteristics that are unique to viewers in China and outside the world.
Incredible. I mean, just an incredible journey, incredible experience that Adrian Gomez is going through. Shout out once again to Adrian and the entire Middle Kingdom Wrestling family. Serious business, man. They're over in China and they're traveling to different parts of Asia, and the mass hysteria is something else. And in my opinion, it's warranted because we are legitimately dealing with a pandemic, something that just about everybody in the entire world, one way or another, is being affected by. So, serious business there, definitely. Folks, welcome back to Duke Loves Rasslin. As you know, this is the show about pro wrestling and everything else. Okay? And speaking to a pro wrestling promoter, Adrian Gomez, Middle Kingdom Wrestling China, about this pandemic affecting all of our lives. Listen, that's what it's all about, Jack. Serious business here, no two ways about it. I hope you all are well. And after the initial rush of grabbing all the toilet paper and whatever else you're trying to grab, your hand sanitizers and all that good stuff, hopefully that stuff has died down and you're settling into your new current reality, And I definitely, my heart goes out to everybody, especially those of you who have been laid off or, they're fired, what have you, as a result of this pandemic. And I encourage you all, please, go to your local government's website, okay? Go to your state website. There is information on different plans and what have you. I know unemployment benefits are being expedited. There are different plans out there from state to state, and that is separate from what our federal government is going to be doing. And I know that there's going to be some type of stimulus that is going to trickle down to those of you who are having a hiccup in employment right now as a result of this whole coronavirus stuff. So please reach out, get the information, fill it out so you can get what you need, put some food on that table, and ride out this storm. For sure. Listen, folks, I'll tell you right now, I have a roster of some amazing guests this week, and this isn't going to be the wrestling heavy podcast that you may hear elsewhere. I really want to talk about this coronavirus thing from different perspectives, from real people who have some advice, who have some experiences to share with you. And my hope is that if in any way somebody can be helped by this information, then this entire episode was worth it. Okay? So we just spoke to Adrian Gomez, who literally is in the thick of things in China. Goodness. And he's been going through this for over 3 months now, right? I'm going to switch up speeds here because I have a movie writer. I have a movie writer who is going to be getting married soon. Can you imagine that? Just a few months away, her wedding is scheduled. what is that like during this coronavirus, this COVID-19 stuff? So let me take a quick break, and then when we get back, you're going to hear from movie writer Sara Polton.
Hi, this is Earl Oliver from Sully's Vintage Wrestling.
This is Raj Giri with WrestlingInc.com.
This is Sean Reed, boxing writer and undercover low-key wrestling fan, and you're listening to Duke Loves Rasslin.
Woo!
Folks, as you know, I am often pointing out the fact that the Duke Loves Wrestling podcast is the show about pro wrestling and everything else, right? So we're not just here talking about wrestlers and MMA and all that other good stuff. I love to collaborate, talk to people from all walks of life. And let me tell you something. Our next guest is somebody who I've been a big fan of for a number of years. Excellent writer, excellent at comedy, has a fantastic social media thing going on, especially on Instagram. So without further ado, welcome to the Duke Loves Wrestling podcast, Sara Polton. How are you, Sara?
I'm doing great. Although I would prefer to be referred to as Sara Social Distancing Polton right now at this time.
All right, I gotta write that. That's a mouthful to say, you know. So I gotta.
I know it's very long. I know. I need to update my social media. I'll do that right after this interview.
Seriously, listen. You know, today is Thursday, and let me first say happy birthday, number one, and number two. How dare you? Okay? How dare you? And this is what you creative types are like. And I'm just going to put this out there. And folks, you know, the Duke likes to just tell it like it is. I'm not going to hold back here. I don't care if I'm a fan of Sara or not. How dare you force everybody for your birthday, for your own personal enjoyment, to live out your next project here, okay? It's clear that you wrote this whole COVID-19 thing just to see how people are going to react and the kind of silly hijinks they're going to get into. So I want to know right now, you need to come clean. Why are we living in one of your movie projects?
Why? Because people are really bad at voting. That's why. Yeah, no, I do love some hijinks, and let me tell you, this is like the ideal dark comedy that we're all living in right now. Although I gotta say, I have realized I have a lot of ironic wishes that are coming true, where I'm like, oh, I just wish I could stay home all the time. I just wish, you know, I didn't have to go out anywhere. I'm like, oh no, it's happening.
Isn't that the problem though? Now that we are actually, you know, we have to work from home and they want us to do social distancing. So now maybe you wish somebody would invite you out someplace and that you actually, you know, instead of blowing them off at the last minute, oh yeah, maybe I'll show up. You know, now it's like, actually maybe
I'm the queen of that.
Something. See?
Yeah.
See?
I like to say yes to everybody who asks me to do something, and then when there's a schedule conflict, I'll just pick the one I want to go to most. And then have to cancel the rest. It's the worst way to handle your schedule.
Okay.
So
you're the double booker, okay? I see what's going on here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, I hope everybody's taking notes, folks, because, you know, some of you out there may know, and if you don't know, you're going to know right now, Sara is getting married later on this year, and you haven't even this is taking social distancing to another level. You haven't even sent out the save the date.
No.
Okay.
No.
So, what's going to be your solution
to
for
that? I think, well, I just got my samples in the mail, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this. I don't know. Everyone might be getting a text. I'm inviting no one to this wedding. I don't know if I'm even invited. So if you haven't figured out when it is by now, it's kind of too I don't know what to say. Yeah, the joys of getting married is there's a lot of antiquated etiquette that you have to do. And this is one of those that I think I might just get a pass on because I get to look at everyone and go, well, there's a pandemic. So do you really want me licking that envelope? I don't know. We'll see.
See, this is what we're talking about. You creators, man, you guys find these loopholes. You find these ways to get around stuff. I'm telling you, this is how it goes here. So tell me, Sarah, seriously, because again, you're a writer. You've written different scripts and movies and all these other. You have a writing partner that you've been doing some great stuff with.
Yeah.
If this COVID-19 stuff, this coronavirus pandemic, if this is your project, where are we going from here in America right now? Because we're kind of at the beginning stages of this. They keep talking about flattening the curve. We're kind of at the beginning of the curve here. How do you write the next step here? What's going to happen in the middle of all this?
I mean, I think things are definitely going to get a lot worse before they get better. You know, if this were a movie, I imagine there's maybe sort of like a Dharma and Greg type of couple going on. Like maybe we have a hippie who's into essential oils and like curing everything with like meditation. And then maybe she gets quarantined with like an attractive scientist who's like teaching her about washing her hands. I don't know. Should we do some sort of film? Maybe they both learn a lesson. I should also say this is not me in real life. Like, that's not reflecting on my current situation. But I don't know. Like, I think things are going to get a lot worse. I actually got supplies weeks ago. Although I got sick supplies because I was like, oh, if I get sick, I won't be able to leave. So I have like, I don't know, a lot of soup. So nice. I'm going to be on the soup diet. So yeah, we'll see. But I'm kind of realizing like no one's prepared for shit in America. Like no one has a supply of anything lined up. Like what's happening over here? Yeah. I don't know. I think things are going to get worse. Bars and restaurants are going to close. I think if things get really bad, you're going to need some kind of like pass to leave, or they're going to stagger people leaving their houses and fine them if they're leaving. I'm hoping it doesn't get that bad. It'll depend on what's going to happen. I think people are going to see elective surgeries get canceled. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just like a lady who's sometimes funny. But those are my thoughts.
Well, you know, it's funny, and I know that, you know, somebody's listening right now saying, well, what the hell is he doing asking her? When we think about technology, innovation, and what drives our imagination to even dream of, for instance, the fact that you and I are holding this tiny little square that just so happens to be able to give you the majority of the answers to anything that's ever existed that we know of. You know, the cell phone can do everything. Well, the cell phone was originally put in Star Trek, I believe it was. At least the smartphone was. So when we think of innovation and science and technology and what could possibly be, somebody has to actually dream this up in order for us to pursue it. And more often than not, it's you writers, you movie folks, you TV folks, entertainment folks. You guys have the imagination and the gall to hide behind this whole notion of, oh, well, it's just, you know, it's science fiction, or it's just, you know, it's comedy, or it's horror. Meanwhile, the eggheads, they're like, oh, wait a second. I think I might be able to actually create a lifesaver or something like that. You know what I mean? So asking you makes a little sense to me, at least.
Sure. I'm also, I shall say, right when this whole thing was announced, I became immediately obsessed with the coronavirus. I'm totally like following every news story. It's like, you can see I've been tweeting about it for a while. It's like, it was for a while, like quite gleefully my favorite topic of conversation. Mostly because I didn't want to talk about my wedding. Like I was just kind of sick of it. I really wanted to focus on like this pandemic and like literally telling people, like I would meet every one of my friends, like everybody I know, like, do you have supplies? Like, have you gone to the store? Like, are you stocked up? Like, how are you feeling? Do you have a fever? Like, so I'm definitely very invested in what's going on. I feel like right now what's playing out is like if Contagion and Idiocracy, like those two movies merged together, I think that's what we have in terms of what's happening in America.
Oh yeah.
And I'm in the Washington DC metropolitan area, and this area is shutting down. Like normally there is crazy traffic. Like I'm hoping people are taking it more seriously. I know people have been at like restaurants and that kind of stuff, but I'm hoping like they're starting to shut down. Like, so I'm hoping that we can get ahead of this because I think it's going to start peaking in the next few weeks.
Well, and that was going to be my next question to you. So, okay, you're the movie writer. You do scripts. You have the imagination. Mm-hmm. How does this thing end? How would you end this story? How would you put a bow on the COVID-19 crisis of 2020, the pandemic of pandemics?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of people thought that it would die out as the weather got warmer. I don't think that's how anything works, but again, I'm not like a scientist. I don't know, like that would be nice, but I don't foresee that happening. And again, this is my opinion. But I think that we're going to find some kind of breakthrough in terms of vaccinations or some kind of treatment for it. I know the whole world is focused on developing either vaccine or, treatment. So I think we're going to have our protagonist, a hero, develop some sort of medication that will save the world. At least that's what I'm hoping. We just need to make sure our antagonists, perhaps certain politicians who want to downplay this event or pretend it's not happening, try to keep the medicine for themselves or for the wealthy or to drive up the prices on it. So hopefully that won't happen and we'll all be able to work together harmoniously, the whole world to solve this crisis. And I'm hoping it also is an opportunity for, different countries and different people to just really realize we're all connected and we all need to come together and do what's best for the group. So we'll see.
Agreed 100%. Yeah. Because, if this is an extended season of The Walking Dead, then, we're going to have to figure this out together. I mean, there's just no two ways about it here, folks. We can't continue to have this us versus them mentality with one another because we may be dealing with something. It's us versus them in terms of COVID-19 versus the living here. So, just something to consider, of course.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing different archetypes play out. We've got the people that are selflessly helping others, these heroes that are, doctors and nurses that are working around the clock. We have the people that are nothing's wrong, I'm going to the bar. We have the social distancers. So we're seeing these different groups emerge. Obviously, if you can, I'm a huge, huge proponent of social distancing. That's what I'm doing now. I'm perfectly healthy. I might go for a walk around my neighborhood, but that's it. That's it.
Well, please don't sneeze on any birds or do anything like that because we don't need those problems.
It is allergy season, though. That's the best part about this whole thing is everyone's coughing and sneezing, and they're like, I've got it. And it's no, it's a lower respiratory infection. If you're sneezing, it's pollen. But, again, we're all, looking side-eyed at each other. Oh, hell no.
Well, what do you expect when you have all the information in the world that you could possibly need in your cell phone, and yet the majority of the time we're just taking pictures of each other and videos and TikTok or something.
I know, right?
That's what it is. We're talking to screenwriter, creative, sometimes funny lady, Sara Polton, a.k.a. Sara Social Distancing Polton, a.k.a. Sarah's getting married, so she's almost going to be something other than Polton. That's right.
We'll see.
That's right. Now listen, Sara. This is a serious show here. It's about pro wrestling, okay? So, here we are talking about marriage and pandemics and all kinds of nonsense. We got to talk about some wrestling here, all right?
Okay.
I need to know, of all the people in the entire pro wrestling universe, okay, why is it that your favorite wrestling-related person is none other than Renee Young?
So many reasons. Number one, she has an incredible personality. She is funny and quirky and interesting. She has a lot of energy. Obviously, she's gorgeous. She's very beautiful. Literally a pioneer, in her field. Hello. Breakthrough, breaking that glass ceiling. I absolutely love her. I love everything about her. I follow all her social media. I think she's incredible. So Renee Young is my girl. I stand Renee Young. She can do no wrong.
So tell me, if you were working on a project, which you constantly are, you're always thinking and working and tinkering and what have you. What would you cast Renee Young in? What do you think her perfect role would be?
Oh, I think actually if I were making the COVID-19 film, I think she would actually be great to play like the hippie character.
Nice.
Because I think she's someone who like would wash her hands and believe in science, but I think very easily as an actress, she could play someone who's like a little hippy dippy with essential oils with her like nose ring in. I think she could absolutely, play that like Dharma and Greg type of like character. I think she'd be really adorable in a rom-com. / maybe this is also a Hallmark Christmas movie. I don't know, like COVID for Christmas.
You know, that would be kind of terrifying actually, but, you know, you do a lot of horror, so I can understand where that's coming from.
I know. I have a weird habit though of like moments from like something I've written coming true.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, maybe I should stop writing horror.
You could be,
like
this is what I'm trying to tell everybody. You have the key to it all. This is it. Through your writing, you're going to, so Renee Young is going to be the person with the handsome doctor researcher guy, the two 100%. Of them together, which, you know, that person will probably be played by The Rock or, you know, Will Smith, somebody is going to be, you know, it's got to be a leading Hollywood person. But, they're going to save us all. That's it.
Yeah.
They're going to save us all.
I don't know if I believe that The Rock could be, a scientist, but you know what? Let's throw a lab coat on him and see what happens.
That's it. Sometimes you just got to throw the spaghetti against the wall, see what sticks, you know?
I recently watched the movie Junior, where Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a scientist and then gets pregnant, because this is what I'm doing with my social distancing time.
Wow.
And he makes the most unconvincing scientist ever. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that's the best part. And come on, now, I mean, that movie might be older than you. I can't believe that you were actually watching Junior.
I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I realize I haven't seen a lot of his movies, so I gotta just watch them all.
That's it.
Arnold's great. Yeah.
That's it. Twins.
Arnold's
my favorite. Well, yeah, and he announced it to everybody, and he also had some choice words to say about some of our fearless leaders who shall remain nameless, and the way that they've handled these things here. It's just, it's got to be an episode of The Office and Veep and everything rolled into one. Just complete, like you said, hijinks. It's just hijinks.
Hijinks. Yeah.
Yes. Well, what isn't hijinks is the fact that you were just amazing at what you do. Again, I really enjoy following you on social media because you're always putting up some fun stuff. In fact, why don't you let everybody know if anyone listening right now wants to get some more Sara social distancing Polton in their life, which though I have to only do it online because, you know, social distancing, of course. What's the best way that they can check out some of your stuff?
Sure. Instagram and Twitter is where I'm most active, and my handle at both of them is my full name, so SaraPolton. So there you go. It's pretty easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, before I let you go, I have to ask this because this is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Why have I not received my save the date? I understand. I understand that I threatened to get drunk and do the big speech and dance with your aunt and all this other crazy stuff. I still plan on doing that, but I want to make sure that it wasn't lost in the mail. So you tell me you just haven't sent them out.
Well, they haven't gone out at all yet, so that must be it.
Okay. So that's you know, I mean, you never asked me for my number, so I don't really know how I'm supposed to get the text if you texted it out, but.
Yeah. Well, only if you can do the electric slide. I don't know. What else do you do at a wedding that's not?
Always fun to talk to Sara Polton. You know, she's hilarious, very sharp, knows her stuff. You know, just really cool person. And I encourage everybody, please check out her Instagram because she's always putting up cool videos and she's just hilarious. Her Twitter account as well, just hilarious. Sara Polton, cool person. You know, some of you out there are pet owners. Just, you know, crossed my mind. I have somebody on the line, close friend of mine, who may have some useful advice for you. So let's just jump right into that.
So we're rolling along here, folks, and let me tell you something. You know, I don't know what it is about today and this week, but there are a lot of great folks who are having birthdays. They're celebrating themselves here, and, you know, I'll tell coronavirus right now, I don't care how big and bad you think you are, coronavirus, we are not going to stop celebrating our family, our friends, all of our loved ones, especially on their special day. So, I thought about it. You know, a very good friend of mine who is a dog mom, she was telling me about some things that she's been doing with her dog, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I said, you know something, let me have her come on the show and give some tips, just because I know a lot of you are pet owners, whether you have a dog or a cat or a hippopotamus, whatever you got. So, hey, without further ado, happy birthday, and welcome to the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast, Laura the dog lover. How are you, Laura?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
I am fantastic. And listen, let me start off. Happy birthday. What's the big dish today? What's the big thing you're going to be eating to celebrate the birthday?
Well, thank you. The big dish I'm having today for my birthday is Jamaican beef patties and homemade pizza.
Jamaican beef patties and homemade pizza. So you're just going all out here. Now, I will reveal, because I'm sure somebody out there is like, well, wow, that's a lot of food. Laura has a bun in the oven. So she is expecting, she's not just going to be Laura the dog lover or Laura the dog mom. She's going to be Laura the mom in general. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
You have a dog, Zelda. And you know, Zelda's my buddy. I love Zelda. I've brought Zelda treats and pet Zelda and have some fun with her and what have you. Talk to us about Zelda, and especially about during this time where spending a little bit more time in the house. Maybe we're not going out and walking as far or as many different places because we're trying to be safe and do the whole social distancing thing. Mm-hmm. How's this week been for Zelda?
It's been okay. We haven't walked as much, but we do a lot of indoor activities with her, such as a lot of tug of war.
You said tug of war, which is pretty cool because I know the dogs love that type of stuff there. So what do you use when you do the tug of war? Are you using a sock? Or are you using a rope? Like what are you using for that?
Well, we have this stuffed animal that has ropes attached to it, so we kind of just drag her around the house playing tug of war, and then we will treat her with fresh sardines that we make for her that we dried as a treat to kind of help stimulate her mind and to also, I guess, keep her busy.
Now, that's pretty interesting. I've never heard of that before. When I think about sardines and different types of fish in general, I normally think about cats, but you're saying that you guys have been feeding your dog, Zelda, sardines. So are sardines a healthy thing to feed dogs?
Yes, she has kidney failure, so we've been trying to feed her a low-protein diet. So instead of buying a dried sardine at the store that's probably $14 a bag, we went to a local grocery market and bought fresh sardines that we dehydrate at home to help with her diet with the kidney failure.
I know one of the things that you guys do, which I think is really cool, is that you've been using that Instapot a lot. Tell us one of the big recipes that you and your husband have been trying out with that Instapot that's been working out.
Yes, the Instant Pot is an amazing kitchen gadget. For Zelda's food, we use ground turkey, sweet potato, frozen green beans, a little bit of brown rice, and it's cooked in an hour. So it's a quick meal to make for your dog that's healthy and delicious.
You talk about a homemade dog food. Once again, folks, this isn't that processed stuff. This is something that anyone, you, I, anyone can do this. And Laura's, she's pulling our coat here. She's giving us a quick tip where you can get your own sweet potato, your own green beans, your own ground turkey, throw it in the Instapot, and before you know it, you got something delicious and nutritious for your dog and for you. You make a big batch, you can eat it as well. That's great. Great tips there, Laura.
Yes, and if you don't have Instant Pot, you can use a Dutch oven. It's not as instant it doesn't cook as fast as in a pressure cooker, but it'll do the good same job, but just a little longer.
That's pretty smart. So you found a way to not only save money, but you actually are in control over the ingredients that Zelda is consuming. So you're really maximizing the nutritional value of what she's eating. Make sure she's not getting something that she shouldn't be getting, which, some of these processed foods out there, you never know what we're feeding our pets. You really got to pay attention. That's good. You said that she's suffering from some kind of complications with her kidneys. Is there particular types of medicine that you've had to stock up on or anything like that in order to deal with that?
Back in January, she was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called immune-mediated thrombocytopenia. And for us to treat the chronic disease, we've been giving her 1,000 milligrams of saline. So we're going to continue doing this for another 3 months until she gets off of her immune suppressant.
What I'm curious about specifically, most folks like myself, I have to worry about going to the grocery store and picking up food for myself and my loved ones. You're picking up food for yourself and your loved ones and your pet and Zelda, your dog here. So have you had to stock up on different things that Zelda needs, and how's that experience been?
Yes, we have. We had to buy her 2 months supplies of saline fluids, and also each week my husband has to go into the store and stock up on sweet potatoes, ground turkey, green beans, and I guess we have to go in weekly so we can continue with her treatment because she can't have kibbles. If we went back to kibbles, it somehow seems to affect her kidneys, and her kidney levels usually goes back up. So it's been kind of stressful. I've been worried about, having enough food for her each week. So we're working with what we can.
You sent me some pictures of Zelda, and it looks like she's pretty well fed and doing well over there. So whatever it is that you're doing, you definitely want to keep that going. What sort of advice can you give to other pet owners, not just dog owners, but anyone who has a pet right now who is being forced to not be outside as often, and maybe they're running into some challenges finding things at the grocery store? Do you have any advice that you can lend, anything that has worked for you that maybe they can check out?
My husband wrestles with my dog a lot, and she tends to love that. We will take her just for a short walk outside the neighborhood and maybe let her run around our yard for a little bit. As far as food, I would suggest just buying frozen vegetables because that tends to last longer. Medication, if your dog is sick, just order a month or 2 supplies of the medication. If you could, I think ideally 3 months if you have someone a dog that has an autoimmune disease that has to be on medication long term. So you need to stock up on medication. That should be the main priority. And then food for the dog.
Listen, Laura, the dog lover, dog mom, soon to be Laura the mom, really appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, you're definitely somebody who stays ahead of the curve. You're very serious about doing what you can to not only make a dollar stretch, but not at the sacrifice of nutrients and keeping healthy. That's what I love about what you've done. And, through the years, you've taught me a lot about food and what have you. In fact, I remember you were the person who taught me how to pick out a lobster and how to make lobster personally. Before that, I would just order a lobster and just take what I got. So you're definitely somebody who I appreciate, and you're pretty sharp. Before I let you go, though, I got to ask you one of the most important questions in the history of questions on your birthday. You ready?
Okay.
What type of pizza does the baby like?
The baby loves cheese pizza with mushrooms and cherry peppers.
That's Laura. Laura's cool, man. Good friend of mine, and she definitely has some great advice there. Making your own pet food. Think about that. And feeding your pets the type of food that you personally would eat as well. I never understood the concept of feeding your dog or your cat something that you wouldn't eat. It just doesn't make any sense. No person is going to eat the pet food that you buy at the store. But these animals are, they're not much different from us. Why the heck are we feeding them weird stuff? Pellets and God knows what. Please, no. Give your dog some real food, please. Please. Listen, I'll tell you, WrestleMania of course, I got to bring this up before we go here. WrestleMania has officially moved. So it's not going to be at its original location. It's going to be moved. And at this point, what we know for sure is at least one night is going to be at the Performance Center. Now, I say one night because WrestleMania has been split up for the very first time into 2 nights. It's going to be a huge weekend extravaganza, Saturday and Sunday, first weekend in April there. And Rob Gronkowski, Gronk, he is a Super Bowl winning player. He's retired from the NFL. He's a great tight end. Now he just signed with the WWE. Rob Gronkowski is going to be the official host of WrestleMania weekend, which is going to be just crazy. So, kudos to WWE for not trying to move forward with that big extravaganza. I don't think they were going to be allowed to do it anyway, but thank you for switching things up. And I'm curious to see what this is going to look like. WrestleMania is split over 2 days. I'm sure the thought process behind that is if you split it up for 2 days, then you'll have different people there, number one. Number two, that will definitely reduce the amount of people that you have in one place at the same time. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be a real crowd there, which is great. And we'll just wait and see what happens. This is uncharted territory here. Okay? This is uncharted territory. WWE has never had an experience like this before. Literally the most successful wrestling promotion in the history of the industry. And they're putting on events without fans. And that's the safest and really the right way to go, considering we're dealing with a worldwide pandemic. So, again, shout out to them. Shout out to Big Vito LaGrazzo. Vito was very passionate about this, and he was on the show last week talking about it. He posted a few things on Facebook that ended up going viral, and some of you gave him a hard time for it because, how dare you call out the WWE? Give me a break. Vito LaGrazzo spent years putting his life on the line in the ring under the WWE banner at this point, right? WWE owns ECW, WWE owns WCW, and WWE is WWE. Well, Vito wrestled for them all. Unlike most of you, he knows the players involved personally. He's worked side by side with them. Okay? He's spoken to them. They've spoken to him. He's taken direction from them. He's given his ideas to them. He's broken bread with some of them. When you encounter somebody who's actually been there, mind your manners. Just keep that in mind, okay? That's why I reached out to somebody like Adrian Gomez. This is somebody who's been there. He's literally in China dealing with this COVID-19 stuff from beginning to end. And we're just now experiencing it here in America. Mind my manners and talk to somebody who's lived it, an expert. For better or for worse, right? I don't have any pets. I can't get pregnant. I reach out to my friend Laura. Give me some information about what the heck's going on with you and how you're dealing with the challenges that are presented with this epidemic, right? I think that at times we want to convince ourselves that we have the answers. When in reality, no one is born with the answers. The best way to get an answer or anything is to experience it. Whether you have a front row seat so you're able to observe the highs and the lows of others, or if you personally are being affected by it, you're living it. Right? So let's just keep that in mind as we provide a take on anything. Nothing beats the experienced. Nothing. And my opinion doesn't somehow mean more than the opinion of somebody who actually is living it or has lived it. They got something to lean on. All I got is theory and assumptions, rumor and innuendo and conjecture and nonsense. Right? Keep that in mind. And I'll say another thing, and we can bring it home with this. I understand that our lives are being affected in some pretty challenging ways right now. And that's why I just remind everybody to please have patience with one another. Some of you are putting your foot in your mouth saying some crazy things. You know, who cares if the old people get it and pass away? I'm young, it doesn't matter. And all these other weird, crazy things that will probably affect your ability to cultivate and maintain a fan base going forward. And I'm talking about all across different forms of entertainment and just regular life. And I'm not going to condemn any of you. I just shake my head and move on. That's my way of having patience. But I'll tell you right now, when you see what's happening in places like Italy, where literally the elderly are just dropping like flies because they cannot get the services needed to address their health issues because so many people are sick at the same time. And a lot of it has to do with this COVID-19 stuff. I wouldn't wish that on the worst person in the world. Heartbreaking. Gravediggers can't even keep up. That's how bad it is. Reminds me of the Ebola crisis when it was happening in different parts of Africa a few years back. I wouldn't wish that on the worst person in the world. I wouldn't wish it on. Have some grace, please. Be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Be safe. Do the social distancing. Be safe. And if you feel that you can survive and you won't have a problem even if you catch this thing, okay. But please, I beg of you, do not go around spreading it to other people. That's it. Okay, folks, listen, check out the Facebook, check out the Twitter, check out Instagram, everything. Duke Loves Rasslin. I'll continue to pump out content for you. You got a little bit of time on your hands, so why not? And support your favorite wrestlers, please. If you can afford to do so, and there are many ways you can do that. You can buy a shirt, you can buy pictures, you can go to their YouTube channels and hit that subscribe button and actually watch their stuff. I know Thunder Rosa, for example, she's encouraging everybody to please check out her YouTube channel. It's a great idea. She's trying to get over into that content partner level. So she needs, a few more hours of streaming. Need you guys to jump in on that, please. April Hunter, she makes her soaps, which are just fantastic. If you need soap, especially moisturizing soap, check out April Hunter's Etsy. April's Sensation. She's been on the show before. You know about that. Different ways of support. And don't give people a hard time if they're creating OnlyFans accounts and all these other things, doing stuff on Patreon, selling thirst trap photos and videos and all that, as the kids would call it. So what? So what? I'm not going to shame anybody. If somebody's out there and there's a market for it and it's legal, go ahead. You want to buy a picture of your favorite wrestler's elbow? So what? I don't care. Whatever, man. Support each other. Different ways of doing that. That's right. Okay, folks, again, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. Catch you on the other side there.
Mr. Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Wrestling.